Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Fab. I'm right now talking to you live from just across from the Phoenix City Hall, and this is in regards to the live protest that I announced that I will be doing. As you can see, I'm right in front of the Phoenix City Hall. You can see, and I'm going to start my protest. The protest is in solidarity with the Kashmiris on the 5th of Feb, and I have a little display over here that I'm going to set up, and I'm going to show you what's written on this display in a few seconds. I hope you can see this. It says, "Kashmir bleeds and you sleep." There's crackdown on journalism, there are enforced disappearances, there are war crimes of India, there are unlabeled mass graves, there's oppression, it's an apartheid, there's permanent blinding of children of Kashmir by the pellet guns of the Indian army. So there's a lot of stuff going on. As you can see, there are people around me. It's lunchtime over here. I'm gonna just hold this and stand here. I've written some boards. This one says, "What will it take for you to save Kashmiris from oppression by India? Another World War III?" And then I have another one that says, "Boycott India, sanction India till India allows UN-mediated fair plebiscite in Kashmir." So as you can see, I've started the protest, and I will be here for an hour, and I'm by myself, but it's okay. If you have to do the right thing, it's okay if you do it by yourself alone. It is important to tell the world what is going on in Kashmir, because tomorrow, if World War III starts and a nuclear apocalypse begins out of Kashmir, then it will be too late for the world to know what happened in Kashmir that led to this war. So nobody in US knows what's going on in Kashmir because nobody is interested in telling them. And even if someone was interested in telling them, they don't care because they're too distracted by the Kardashians, by the celebrity gossip, by a lot of other things that are really irrelevant. But this is something that the world should know, that the United States should know, that Americans should know, that India is committing oppression of Kashmiris. India has rejected the UN call for a fair plebiscite for the last 70 years. India has rejected concerns of Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. And it's about time, while we are on the brink of a war between India and Pakistan that could lead to an apocalyptic World War III, it is about time we try our best to be able to convince the people that, hey, wake up, try to do something about it. Try to pressurize India into committing the long-awaited referendum. Try to grant the Kashmiris their right of self-determination that has been granted to them by the United Nations under the UN resolution that was passed in the 1940s. Till this self-determination is granted, the Kashmiris they're going to continue to protest peacefully, politically, diplomatically against Indian aggression. So many youth have been killed, slaughtered. So many children have been made blind and orphaned. We're talking about thousands and thousands of children. We're talking about thousands of women who got raped, because rape is a political tool of subjugation that India has been using. It has been written up by major humanitarian agencies, but it has not stopped its aggression, its oppression, its persecution. It is important and vital that we tell the people around us, we talk to the masses, we tell them what's going on in Kashmir and what will happen if Kashmir remains ignored, abandoned, neglected. So this is my humble attempt to come here on 5th of February on the Kashmir Solidarity Day to stand with the Kashmiris, to protest against Indian aggression, to protest against persecution of Kashmiris by India, to protest against state-sponsored terrorism by Indian state. And if the world continued to ignore Kashmir, there's a very strong possibility that Pakistan and India will go to war, a nuclear war that will be a pre-apocalyptic World War III. People are distracted. People don't care. People are sleeping. You have to buy lobbyists. You have to sell humanity. You have to buy humanity, because that is the only way you can convince the corrupt politicians to pay any attention to Kashmir, to pay any attention to the oppressive regime of India that has neglected the Human Rights Charter that has been delineated by the leading humanitarian agencies, including Amnesty International, including United Nations. It has rejected everything. And if we don't protest, we are looking at World War III. Because like Martin Luther King said, an act of injustice in one place can lead to injustice everywhere. So here I am. I'm doing this protest alone by myself because I think it's worth it. I think it is important that someone started somewhere to talk about Kashmir to Americans, trying to tell them what's going on in Kashmir under the nose, because their government will not tell them. Why? Because the government only works on sponsorships, only work on lobbyists. We don't have the money to buy lobbyists. We don't have the money to sponsor politicians. We don't have the fortune that is needed to buy the attention of the American congressmen and women. But this is our humble attempt to try to convince the world that, hey, wake up, guys, wake up. There's something very serious going on in Kashmir, and your silence is only aggravating and encouraging the apartheid that's currently being committed by India in Kashmir. Only last year, more than 500 Kashmiri civilians got killed. And their only crime was that they tried to protest peacefully. Hey, hi.
Dr. Maria Barr.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Julian Hernandez. I was the reporter.
Oh, nice to meet you. Hi. I was actually on live on my...
Oh, you're live right now?
Yeah, but it's okay.
If you'd like, you could just...
You can say hi.
Hello.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a moment, I just had a couple of questions I wanted to ask.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, whenever you're done with live.
So I have Mr. Hernandez over here, and he's going to cover our protest. Even it's a solitary one-person protest, but we're talking about millions of Kashmiris, so it has to start somewhere with someone. So it's better to do something about it than just remain silent. So I'm going to just shut this off because I'm going to be talking to him and then I'll get back on the line. Bye-bye. This is Dr. Fab. I'm calling again live from Phoenix. I'm right across from the Phoenix City Hall, and I just spoke with Mr. Hernandez, who's a journalist, and I just told him about what's going on in Kashmir, about the Indian forces' aggression against the civilians of Kashmir. And I'm standing here, I've got my placards and my posters, trying to invigorate an awareness about what's going on against the Kashmiris, about the genocide being committed by India, and how important this conflict is for the rest of the world, including the Americans. I spoke with Mr. Hernandez about the importance of resolving this conflict at the earliest possible because India and Pakistan are on the brink of war. And if this issue is not resolved peacefully, politically, diplomatically, in light of the UN Charter of Human Rights that calls for a resolution to have India allow a fair plebiscite, we are looking at World War III. We are looking at a pre-apocalyptic nuclear war. He told me that I should get hold of the Arizonians and try to form a Kashmir-based rights group. It is so unfortunate that in US there's hardly anybody working for the Kashmiris. Anybody, even our own Pakistani American community, they are not organized enough to raise awareness about the oppression that India is doing against Kashmiris. Every second we are seeing people dying, innocent people, civilians in Kashmir who had absolutely who had not committed any crime. India is justifying killing little children who are pelting stones. India is calling them militants just because they're pelting stones. How is that justifiable? This is what India does to these children, is state-sponsored terrorism that nobody wants to talk about. Especially, I tried to explain it to him that this is a very important conflict, not just for the Americans, but for the rest of the world also. Because if there's a nuclear war that starts between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, as Modi wants to win his election, to regain his power, we are talking about the end of times. We are talking about apocalypse. So it is very important to put pressure on India to stop these ongoing human rights violations against Kashmiris and to conduct the fair plebiscite that United Nations asked for. And if we did not do that, if we did not pressurize India to come to the table, we are looking at the end of times. We are looking at a war, a bad war, where millions and millions are going to die. So, and this war will affect US as well. And so it is better for Americans to convince their congressmen and congresswomen and senators to do something about this conflict, take care of it peacefully, politically, diplomatically, in light of the United Nations Charter that calls for a fair plebiscite in the Valley of Kashmir, where the Kashmiris have their right of self-determination. If we are not going to do that, we are looking at the end of the world. I'm the only one over here, as you can see, because nobody is interested in Kashmir in the US. Nobody talks about it. Even the Kashmiris themselves do not talk about it. And I think primarily because they're scared, because the Indian lobbies are so powerful in US. They have bought politicians, they have sponsored campaigns, they have bought lobbyists. So it is next to impossible to penetrate the thick matrix of corruption that encircles the US government, to be able to try to do something tangible that will stop the ongoing human rights violations against Kashmiris. So I'm hoping that this little protest that I'm doing will have a tangible impact, and it should be enough to wake up the Americans to question Indians about what's going on in Kashmir, and why aren't they asking their government to stop the ongoing persecution of Kashmiris by their forces. There is the AFSPA law, the draconian law, that gives the Indian forces complete impunity. No matter what they do, they can rape women, they can abduct children, they can shower bullets on unarmed protesters, and they can get away with it. Their government is not going to do anything about it. What are the non-resident Indians doing about their government's hegemonic agenda? Why aren't they pressurizing their government to try to stop the ongoing atrocities in Kashmir? The crackdown of journalism has to stop. Journalists, international journalists, should be allowed to come to Kashmir, Srinagar, and check out for themselves what's going on. And the United Nations Human Rights Commission a report and demanded for India to allow a forensic independent investigation into the matter. But India has been rejecting everything, including the United Nations. And their reluctance to come to the table with Pakistan is supportive of the fact that they want war. They do not want dialogue. They do not want peaceful solution of Kashmir. They do not want to listen to United Nations. They do not want to listen to Amnesty International. They do not want to Human Rights Watch. They are writing laws of their own that they want the rest of the world and the leading humanitarian agencies to accept, and they think they can get away with it. Why? Because the people are allowing them to get away with it. And it is for us to speak up about Kashmir wherever we are, to tell people, to pressurize their senators, their politicians, to try to bring about a peaceful solution. Because if we do not do that, we are looking at war between India and Pakistan, and that will be a pre-apocalyptic end of times war, nuclear war. And that will affect every individual in this world, whether that person is an Asian, whether that person is a European, whether that person is an African, whether that person is an American. It will affect every human being on this planet. Millions will die. So it is a conflict that is buried like the dead bodies of the martyrs of Kashmir who have been buried by the Indian government in the unlabeled mass graves that nobody wants to probe, that nobody wants to dig. That is proof of Indian oppression. That is proof of Indian atrocities against the Kashmiris. And the carnage of these atrocities is building up because nobody cares. Nobody's willing to listen. So the end result is going to be war, imminent war, This is the time, wherever you are, whoever you are. If you want peace, if you want a viable, safe world for your children, you must act now. You must tell India to stop its human rights violations, to come to the table with Pakistan, to do the plebiscite that United Nations asked for, to stop bullying, intimidating the Kashmiris against the Human Rights Charter, against the international codes of conduct. So this says that, I'm going to show you what these different boards are saying. This one says, India is detaining journalism. Why won't you stop India? And then this one shows the war crimes of India. It shows that there are 11,111 Kashmiri women who were raped by the Indian forces. There are 107,756 Kashmiri children who are orphaned by the Indian forces. There are 22,898 Kashmiri women who have been made widow by the Indian forces from the extrajudicial killings. There are greater than 95,000 Kashmiri civilians who have been killed. The Geneva Conventions have been violated. United Nations call for fair plebiscite has been rejected by India. Hundreds of children were recently made blind permanently by the pellet guns of Indian forces. And then I have this one that says the carnage from Indian atrocities is climbing as you stay distracted from Kashmir. And it says, stop the genocide of Kashmir by India. So I'm going to be standing here for the next half an hour holding these posters. And whoever is watching me right now should remember that nothing is too small. Even if you're alone, you must always endeavor to do the right thing. Because even if it's a small stone that you throw, a small pebble that you throw in a pond, that can initiate the ripples that could bring about a tangible change in the world. If he said, you're too small, you're too weak, you're too meek to talk about it, you're wrong. You're not too small, you're not too weak. Wherever you are, whoever you are, do a protest like this. Whichever region of the world you are, do a protest like this. Talk about it, put pressure on, tell people about it. Instead of telling the politicians who already know about Kashmir, tell common people who don't know about this. Tell them about the grave consequences if nothing was done for Kashmiris. We are looking at imminent war between India and Pakistan. This world will end, and then it will be too late for the people to wake up. So the time to act is now. I strongly want you to even initiate a boycott and sanctioning of India if they do not come to table diplomatically, if they do not allow the Kashmiris their right of self-determination through a UN-mediated fair plebiscite. You have to put pressure, you have to put economic pressure. If they are not willing to listen to you, you have to put economic pressure on India to try to stop a World War III from happening, to try to stop an apocalypse that could happen. You gotta do it. You don't have a choice. It has to be done now. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.